Welcome to the Temple of Flame. On today, Vic Black Lights, we take a look at this. And what this is hot off the presses, as I suppose you can be. See, it's new. It says right there. We have the Ortega Blazin Fire taco sauce. Now, we're giving it 5 out of 6. 5 out of 6. I don't know about that. We'll see. We'll see. And so, actually, I'll just read through these. We have tomato puree. We have, let's see, water, corn syrup, distilled vinegar, habanero peppers. We've got salt, spices, cornstarch, paprika, citric acid, dry green chilies, sodium benzoate, and the yummy, ever-present xanthan gum, onion powder, and acetic acid, which is vinegar. So, or essentially what vinegar is. We've got, so I wanted, when I saw this in the grocery store, and I was looking for taco shells, actually, and I just happened to glance up and see this. And I'll tell you this, so I was, on and off, I've debated doing this, just, going back, and I think a lot of us have that impulse to go back and maybe try to recreate dishes from our childhood. But this Ortega was an important step on the chilehead journey for me, in that both them and La Victoria were two fairly available hot sauces, or taco sauces, if you will, on the shelves at the time. Yes, there was Tabasco, but Tabasco really read more like it was very, very vinegary. Ortega and La Victoria showed a lot of us at the time. There wasn't a whole lot available. It showed a lot of us at the time you could have deliciousness and heat as well. So, see, it's a sort of ketchup-y color, sort of this dark red, maybe towards brown a little bit. Little flecks and bits and pieces of stuff in there. I think it's a really, really good looking sauce, but it looks like the other taco sauces, from Ortega as well. When I haven't had it for years, but when I saw that there was a habanero version, I got my ears perked up almost immediately, and I knew I had to do it just because of how important this was to me on my chilehead journey, just the Ortega and, like I said, La Victoria. But let's get into it and see what this newest one has to offer. Yeah. Thick, rich, hearty, quite tomatoey. Very much a taco sauce. Not very hot, though. I didn't think it would be. So, when I was thinking of what to do with this, I've done tacos a lot. In some of the, and I don't know, some of those videos probably aren't up yet, but I've done tacos a lot. And just the homemade variety, and I thought, I don't want to do a taco again for this, even though it's taco sauce. And I thought, well, what about these other things? So I was thinking about this the other day. My mom, love her to death, but she was, I think, better at following directions than she was as an actual cook. She doesn't really cook anymore now. I don't, and there's a lot of for different reasons for that, but I don't know that she ever really enjoyed it a whole lot. It was probably one of them. And it got me thinking, she made these, the reason I was thinking of that is she made these different they were supposed to be burritos, but she basically got a bunch of these tortilla wrappers, and she put in taco meat and I think maybe cheese. Cheese might have gone on top. And she loved the oven. She loved the oven. And so they went in the oven and baked. And a whole bunch of these sort of tortilla pockets, I guess you would, these square things that were filled with mostly taco meat. And so she used a lot of McCormick's taco meat. Again, that's why I was saying, you know, she was really, really good at following directions. And which is fine. I mean, that way you have everything come out the way it's supposed to be. Definitely a different for me that almost never follows directions, but that's kind of the difference in that, you know, I'm trying to almost create stuff, whereas she's trying to recreate stuff. Neither here nor there. But anyway, it got me thinking about that, and I'm like, there is no way I'm going to fold a whole bunch of these things and throw them in the oven. But I wanted to do a throwback. So what I did was I basically recreated the McCormick taco seasoning. You know, those packets you can buy. So I basically recreated it here, and I thought, you know what, let's do a burrito. That's what we'll do. We'll do oh, I waited too long. I got too chilled. I'm not going to be able to fold it. So you remember that one time, a long time ago, when I said, let's do a burrito? How about let's just do a really gigantic taco? Except, I mean, what's a burrito? Burritos are essentially, I guess, in some respects, tacos. So since we're just going to fold it in half, let's do that. Or we make it a roll-up even. So I managed to recreate the McCormick pretty readily. And then I just modified it from the version she used to do by... She wasn't as obsessed with umami as I find myself these days. So we did that again. We're just going to throw some medium cheddar on here. And you're don't really get a whole bunch on here because we're going to fold this in half. This tortilla is oblong too. Medium cheddar. I almost do it this way, and this is sort of, and I think she might have called them burritos. I can't remember what if she said there was a name for it or not. I don't even know where she used to get recipes all the time from magazines and different cookbooks and junk. And this is all, you know, back in the 70s and 80s when we did not have the massive gamut of available peppers or hot sauces that we do now. Well, I've recreated the flavors really well. I don't remember if she threw refrieds in or not. I'm sure one of those times she did. Go for a little bit of that beef and bean action. But yeah, so Ortega, even back then, I didn't feel our sauce was very hot. But it was delicious. And On those burrito square things that she made, I want to say she did top them with cheese, but so you had a tortilla layer over the top, and then you had 4 sides folded underneath. So you can imagine what happens when you throw that in the oven and let it bake. You have this 4 layers of tortilla that you've got to try to saw through somehow. What we probably should have done, I don't know if we did or not, but what we probably should have done is wait for them to cool off enough so we could just pick them up. But, you know, that was back in the, back then, everything had to be served piping hot. Whenever possible, you know, get it while it's hot. And back then they had a lot of different approaches towards food safety. There wasn't the idea of bringing meat to room temperature so you don't shock it when you put heat to it. So sometimes it'd be right from frozen into a hot pan. Or a hot grill. You know, and then if you tried to run it to like well done, you wouldn't have a very good end result. There's a nice little bit of nostalgia here. I did a this would have been better actually if I would have had some tomatoes and lettuce in there. So even though I had been doing tacos a lot, I should have done it again for this. But yeah, no, I mean, just a nice throwback. Heat-wise, I mean, Ortega is a mass market product like La Victoria. And it was back then, back in the 70s, 80s, the throwback I just took us all to, or at least myself. It was a revelation because the first thing I wanted to know, one of the first things I wanted to know, and my father as well, who is, his stomach couldn't take much of a pounding, but he was very much interested in hot and spicy things to a degree. Like super hots, I think we're kind of beyond him, but he was very interested in it. And of course, our big question then was, do we have something like this with actual heat? So we went through, they had a mild and a hot back then. So we went through the hot, and it was better. I liked it a lot better, actually, but it still wasn't particularly hot. So we went to the Salsa Brava, went through the hot and the La Victoria. La Victoria and Salsa Brava, I have basically are synonymous because the rest of them didn't have any heat at all. And so Salsa Brava was another one that we would rotate. We would go with the Salsa Brava because to us anyway, was slightly hotter than the Ortega hot. And people introduced me to tiger sauce, which I was like a revelation, a different revelation, because it was not going to go on everything. But I was like, this is really interesting. And of course, Tabasco. Tabasco was just, I was not a huge, I really like pickles and olives. Like, I've always liked pickled things, but I'm not a huge fan of vinegar. And that essentially was kind of what Tabasco was to me. I'm like, you're just pouring vinegar on stuff. Like, you know, back then, I remember when Subway started to emerge, then this was also, I became aware of them, I guess. I don't know if they were prior to that, but I became aware of them in the area, you know, back in the 80s. And the idea of dumping oil and vinegar on a sandwich, to me, was just like, what in fuck's name are you doing? You know, just like, because I'd never seen that or even heard of it before. And, you know, at the time, it's back then, here's some more nostalgia bump for you. Back then, stuff was very seasonal. Like, you could only get certain foods at certain times of the year. Very, 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 very prevalent. And, you know, as the world is contracting right now, right, everything is getting a lot closer with shipping lanes and technology and so on. You can get whatever you want, generally whenever you want now, as long as you're in a sufficiently sized city. Possibly even in some of the more rural and remote ones. I don't know. I don't go to those places too much anymore. But possibly even in some of those. I mean, if the distributors have it, like, there's no reason they wouldn't just give it to them if somebody wanted it. And that was I mentioned that because that was the frame setting that things were in. There was only a handful of things that you could even call a hot sauce back then. And for the most part, jalapeno was as hot as it got. Like, you didn't see habaneros. I didn't know that was even a pepper until I moved. And when I moved, I also encountered for the first time Cholula. And that was another massive revelation, because I was like, holy hell. Like, I've been missing out, you know? And at that point was when, so this would have been back in the early 90s. It was at that point, because I dabbled as much as I could before, but it was very limited because I didn't have access to a lot of stuff. And I also didn't have money. But from the early 90s on was when I really dedicated myself to trying as many different new things as possible, just so that I wouldn't be missing out. You know, I mean, they call it FOMO now, and it wasn't really a fear. It was just a drive, because I'm not afraid of missing out. I just would strongly prefer not to, because those are some potentially really great life experiences that you can have. And so anything that has interested me, I've tried to follow it to the extent possible, whether it's home brewing or trying a litany of different beers or bourbons or whatever. Cheeses, like foods, obviously a lot of the foods I record here now, but it has been just rewarding. Like, you can enrich your life, I think, in a lot of ways. You have to eat anyway, so you might as well, I feel like, take the opportunity to enrich yourself when and where you can. And if it's something as easy as just like adding a little bit of zing to things, or just trying some new stuff out, then absolutely you should 100%, in my book, do it. You know, that's like, I talk about the spirit of experimentalism a lot in the blog and here, and that's what I mean. You know, don't be afraid that something's bad. It's just, don't have it again then, you know, but don't be afraid of it. Like, why'd you be afraid of it? So, definitely very tangential to this. So as far as this, like I said, it's a default one, and flavor is like it's as dead on as you can get. This is in many ways the quintessential taco sauce, and I would just tell everyone, just if you like spices, I'll just get this. It's not going to be satisfying to chili heads. It is not particularly hot even, but the flavor, if you want to know, you know, if you want a throwback taco sauce, you'd be hard pressed to do any better than this, because this stuff was one of the few things that was everywhere. And I'm not going to comment on what is or is not the best because trends have changed so much. I will say I found this quite delightful. It is outstanding on breakfast foods as well. The Ortega taco sauce in general. And they managed to not bring a lot of heat, but they managed to retain a lot of the characteristics of the classic Ortega taco sauce while just bringing a slight degree of heat. So, you know, mission accomplished there. Blazing fire, definitely not, but still a steadfast, quality, reliable flavor. And we'll just leave it right there. So that was the Ortega Blazin Fire taco sauce. Now go forward in peace to serve the flame.